Suzanne's Paparazzi Jewelry, 24/7 shopping available. 160920 is the code. Show her some love, like she showed us.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Coast to Coast Entertainment Network. I am Ace, and tonight I am joined by none other than that man that we call Big B. Big B, how are you doing tonight?
Doing good. Watch a little bit of Game 3 between that and NXT. It's time to come on and talk to my wrestling family, so let's get it going.
All right, and then, of course, welcome in Mr. William Hudson from Top Rope Collectibles. Will, how are you doing tonight?
Doing great. How's everybody doing? Hope everything's going well. Hope everybody had a great Halloween, and we're on to November now.
Oh, I know. I can't believe we're already in November. All right. Welcome in Thomas Burnett. He is here tonight. He's saying good evening, everyone. Good evening, Thomas. We hope you're having a good night. Roger Cooper's here saying, hey, guys. Hey, Roger, we hope you're having a great night also. All right, so maybe we should go ahead and jump right into it. I was kind of thinking about this before, before we jumped on, and there's kind of a lot of back and forth about this. And what I'm saying is, because now that Sami Zayn is kind of in the so-called bloodline right now as like the honorary Uce, and then everyone's like, he kind of reinvigorated the whole bloodline storyline to where now people are saying maybe it's not time for Roman to drop the title. Do you guys feel like they should indeed have this last until Mania and then have him go up against The Rock? Or, because I know that Triple H was saying that he was trying to figure out how he could have maybe Roman drop one of the titles without actually having him lose, because he wants to make him look strong going into Mania. So that could be another thing that we're trying to come up with here. So Big B, let me ask you, is it time for Roman to drop one of the titles? And if so, how would you do it?
It's definitely time. I mean, that's the whole thing, though, is how is he going to do it and still look strong? I mean, it would have to be probably a triple threat match where, he doesn't have to be pinned. I mean, that's the only way I could think he could do it. I know there's a lot of speculation that I've been seeing, which, they're going to give it to Logan Paul somehow. And I can't see that. I mean, I said if Logan Paul wins, it's going to be by DQ, so he's not going to win the titles. So yeah, it's got to be a triple threat or a 4-way or something like that for him to lose the titles, or Austin Theory cashes in. So that's the only way I can think of. But the Sami Zayn thing is well hilarious. I mean, it was supposed to start off with a few weeks that him in there, and then they were supposed to turn on it from what I've read, and it's just went off and skyrocketed. So they kind of kiboshed that for now. I mean, kind of like RK Bro. It was all supposed to be a couple week thing, and then it turned into, however long they were going. So definitely an interesting storyline with him and Jay going at it. And, we saw him, Jay say he doesn't care what Tribal Chief says. So it'll be interesting to see where they go with that part.
All right. Will, how about you?
I think if you're going to take one belt off Roman and not both, it needs to be Roman's decision. He needs to come out and say, you know what, I'm the Universal Champion. I don't need this other title. This is kind of like the twos, and we're the ones. And to be the ones, you got to have the Universal title. And just have them relinquish the WWE title. Then you have a tournament, just like old school. And you got a new WWE champion. You still got Roman as Universal Champion. He's still just as strong as he was. And you go, towards Royal Rumble. You got Survivor Series coming up, which should be huge. Then you head straight towards Royal Rumble and then WrestleMania, of course. But I hope there's not a lot of broken hearts out there if Rock doesn't end up having this match with Roman.
Right. There's speculation saying he is, but then there's also speculation saying that, The Rock hasn't officially agreed to it yet. And so if he actually hasn't agreed to it, then it's in there going, okay, you might be setting yourself up at this point in time to where if it doesn't happen, then WWE is like, okay, now what? Because now it's not happening.
I mean, when's the last time Rock was actually in the ring? I mean, granted, the guy's in phenomenal shape, so I mean, he could pick it up easily, but
WrestleMania 29, 2013.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, he could probably pick it up quick. I mean, he's got, the blood runs it through him, so, and he's in phenomenal shape. And I don't think the match has to be for any titles. I think it just has to be for, the tribal chief crown or whatever, however they want to do it. But I don't think it has to be for any titles.
So Thomas is saying Roman better not drop the titles to Logan Paul. He won't. I mean,
No.
I don't see in any way possible that they could give the titles to Logan Paul.
You have to think about it. You have to think about it this way. Earlier this year, you had Johnny Knoxville come in at WrestleMania and face Sami Zayn. And even though Sami Zayn probably should have, floored Knoxville and really killed him in the match, you had Knoxville win because he brought in that outside celebrity, the whole crowd. And you had people that probably normally wouldn't watch wrestling watch that event because of Knoxville coming in. Well, it's the same thing with The Rock and Reigns. If you have Reigns lose, and he drops the belt or two belts to Rock, what are you going to do there? Because Rock's not sticking around. Yeah. And at the same time, if you have The Rock come in and he loses to Reigns, that's really impactful to his career outside of wrestling because, he's the number one actor in the world right now, highest paid actor right now. He's a big star, probably the biggest star arguably in Hollywood right now. A lot of the long-term actors that we all watched growing up are retired or gone. So really, ultimately, we've seen The Rock go from absolutely nobody to the biggest star, arguably in the world. And to have him come in to where he started, even though he's 50 years old, and lose, I mean, that's not good for his, persona outside in Hollywood or anything else. And it doesn't do a whole lot for The Rock to win either. So I don't know. I mean, I know it's kind of that everybody's thinking it's going to be Rock and Reigns, all that stuff, but, Rock doesn't have to do it for the money. Vince is retired, so Rock isn't going to do it for Vince to do him a favor. I don't know that you get that match, and if you do get that match, I don't know that you really see a clear winner because, what does it do for Roman that he doesn't already have? Yes, he beats The Rock, but then he turns around and he has to drop those titles somewhere. So, he beat The Rock, but then he drops him to Cody or whoever. It doesn't really do a whole lot more for Roman than what he already has right now, 2+ years as champion. And then, Rock, it really hurts him more to lose. And then if he comes in and wins, what are you saying there? This guy hasn't wrestled since 2013 in a championship match, which was at WrestleMania 29 against Cena. And he comes in off the street, hasn't had a match in 9 years, and comes in and beats the biggest and best thing you have in your company, and really the biggest and best thing in wrestling. That doesn't make any sense either. So I don't know where they go with that or whether or not you really see it. But here's the big problem: if you don't have Rock and Roman, any other match you have as a main event WrestleMania is automatically somewhat of a letdown because who are you going to have go against Roman? I mean, even if you have Cody, a lot of people are behind Cody, but, let's face it, that's really not a main event, Cody and Roman. So, I don't know. That's just my 2 cents on it.
Unless it's Bray and Roman, because Bray Wyatt is so over that if you put Bray in that match, I don't think anybody would be disappointed.
No. I mean, I guess it all depends on how they book it too. I mean, if they come in and have a Bray run right through Roman like nobody's business, then yeah, it's going to be a boring match. If they can put out a good main event with that, I mean, then yeah, we'd be happy. But we'll see.
Well, yeah. So the only other idea before we go into our next topic, the other idea that I had on for a way for for Roman to drop the belts would be that. And Will, I see your comment there to where, because Thomas Burnett was talking about how The Rock's last match was against Rowan at WrestleMania 32, but
So let me just say this.
Mhm.
Thomas is the historian. We all
Yep.
love Thomas to death. He's a great friend of mine, but that dude likes to argue about anything. So The Rock did not have a match there. They rang the bell. Rock bottomed them and pinned them. That was
right.
That's not a match. So
right. No, I agree. But yeah, my thoughts could be because since Sami Zayn is like, Roman's little sidekick, Sami could come out and be like, well, I am Roman's like honorary oos. It means I'm like his right hand man. And I'm not saying that they would do this. I'm just saying it could be an interesting idea to where somebody's like, okay, if you're Roman's right hand man, then why don't you wrestle a match for him and he can put one of his belts on the line, and then Sami loses, Roman loses a belt, and then they turn on Sami because he lost for Roman.
maybe, possibly. Are they trying to build up Sami, you think, to face Roman at WrestleMania like they did with Daniel Bryan and Batista and Orton?
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe. So Thomas is saying if we count Hogan and Yokozuna, then we have to count Rock and Rowan.
Hogan and Yokozuna was longer than Rock and Rowan. It was like 40 seconds compared to 40.
There you go. All right. So
look, his last actual match was like 36 minutes long. It was against Cena. It was at WrestleMania 29 in New York, or technically New Jersey. And then he came out at WrestleMania 32 and went into the ring, and the Wyatt family surrounded him, and they rang a bell. He rock bottomed them, like a 4-second deal. So his last actual match was WrestleMania 29.
yeah, so it's like you said. So you don't count that at all.
I mean, really, he's rock bottomed other people. He rock bottomed Miro on a Monday Night Raw. I don't think we can count that as his last match. I'm sure he's come out and he's given the slap or the smackdown, whatever you want to call it, to some wrestler here and there, but I don't think we can count that as his last match. His actual last match was WrestleMania 29 against Cena.
Okay. All right. I think if you stayed on this topic, I think he could go back and forth with you about this all night, saying that it counts. But
I think there's everybody to jump on. I mean, that wants a debate. I mean, or come on and discuss it. I should say, not a debate, but
all right. Well, we can go on to our next topic anyways, which our next topic is our Mount Rushmore of tag teams. So I'll go ahead and start out with Will. So who is your Mount Rushmore of tag teams?
All right, so don't crucify me for this, because this is going to be a little different than what a lot of people are going to say. And a lot of people are going to say, well, what about this team? And what about that team? And this was the greatest. And these guys are 25-time tag champs and all that stuff. So here's the thing. You can only pick 4. There's no alternates. There's no 5. There's no honorable mentions. There's just 4, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, in my opinion, the 4 greatest of all time: Legion of Doom, The Outsiders, Hall and Nash, Owen Hart and Yokozuna. I can see Big B's face. And for the 4th team, I would pick Harlem Heat.
wow.
Ooh, wow.
Oh.
A lot of teams a lot of teams got left out. If you can only pick 4, I know there's a lot of great tag teams. I know, there's one that comes to mind that everybody's going to say, well, what about this team? But if you could only pick 4 and the greatest tag teams, every one of those teams are multiple-time champions. Every one of those teams have gone through all kinds of stuff. A lot of those members of those teams are world champions or have held world titles. So those are my 4 Mount Rushmore teams.
So I'm just curious about Harlem Heat. I'm just curious, like, what made you decide to put them in your top 4?
So as a total package, Harlem Heat, as a total package, if you put them up against anybody, I mean, you got to remember, these guys, not only did they have an amazing in-ring appearance, but they could move, they could do high flying, they could do power moves, they were extremely powerful. I think of great tag teams, and I think of teams like Akeem and the Boss Man. Individually, Akeem and the Boss Man, probably not, the greatest individual wrestlers, but as a tag team, they were incredible, and I think of some other guys too, Haku and Andre. As Andre was getting older, he needed less time in the ring, but you still wanted to have him there as a presence, so you put him with Haku. I think of those teams like that. But ultimately, Harlem Heat, what an incredible total team they were. I think they were like 10 or 12-time tag team champions. Thomas can correct me, I'm sure. But, what a great team. And, they survived during a really, really tough time in WCW. And then Booker goes on to become multiple-time world champion, Hall of Famer, goes to TNA, does a lot of great stuff there. Overall, I mean, you're talking just about every one of those teams has a world champion on it. Other than the Legion of Doom, there's world champions in every one of those teams.
Yeah.
And multiple Hall of Famers throughout the whole thing. So gotta hand it off to those guys, and just as a total package, great teams.
It makes sense. So Thomas is saying Road Warriors, Steiner Brothers, Demolition, and Arn and Tully. Thomas Glenn is saying Rock and Roll Express, Tully and Arn, Outsiders and Legion of Doom, and the best tag team, Fabulous Moolah and Mae Young.
Because he did both of them.
And then Roger Cooper, Nasty Boys, Arn and Tully, Midnight Express, Bobby and Dennis, and Steiner Brothers.
Yeah.
All right. Big B, who do you have?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, we limited it to 4, Mount Rushmore. For me, the top 2 teams were no doubt the Dudleys and the LOD. I think they held titles all over the world. So, to me, those 2 are slam dunks for me. Now, when it came to my 3 and 4, man, I was throwing it back and forth. Hardys, Outsiders, New Age Outlaws, all that. I still really can't decide, but you gotta go to the Outsiders. I think they revitalized the Monday Night Wars. What they when they came in, I think that started. And I got to go to the Hardys. I think they and the Dudleys put on some of the great matches along with Edge and Christian. I mean, and that's another team you leave out. So, I mean, just to limit it to 4, it's definitely a big talker. And I know we're going to get a lot of different tag teams in there. At least 3 are going to be different. So,
yep.
Yeah.
Great choices, Big B. Great choices.
So I was stuck on a few of those too because I was going back and forth on a few of them. Now I did put the Dudleys in there because they were one of my favorite tag teams of all time, and I think that they truly deserve to be considered in the top 4. One of the other ones that I threw in there too, and people definitely may not agree with this, but the Hart Foundation, I had them in the top 4 also.
Can I say this, Adam?
Yeah.
Bret Hart is my all-time favorite. All-time. If I was to only be able to watch one wrestler for the rest of my life, it'd be Bret Hart because he's my all-time favorite. And I didn't even put the Hart Foundation in the top 4, but that's a hell of another great addition. Yeah. A great team. So great call out there.
All right. My other one was Steiner Brothers. I was always a huge fan of the Steiner brothers. Always loved to watch them. And then my final one was LOD. You have to have. I mean, you mentioned tag teams. LOD has to be in your top 4 also. So
Do you know what kept the Steiners out of my top 4?
yeah, I'm really curious. Yeah.
So yes, one of the greatest of all time, but one of the greatest of all time on the independent circuit in WCW, NWA, all that. But their run in WWF was probably amongst the worst teams ever to go in WWF. I would say the Brainbusters had a better WWF run. I would say Legion of Doom had a better WWF run. I would say the Nasty Boys had a better WWF run. There's just so many teams that were incredible that had a better main screen WWF run than the Steiners. And the Steiners really, they got to the big time, and it's like, they were a really big fish in a small pond when they were in WCW, NWA, Japan, independent circuits. But when they got to the big pond, they really struggled.
Well, Thomas, that's a fair question, but we were doing 4 tag teams this week, but that doesn't mean that next week that we can't do, the top 4 women's tag teams of all time too.
But he's right. He's right. We always seem to leave out the women for some reason.
Yeah, but the thing is, I mean, women's wrestling been around for a while, but I think now they're getting more headlines and more matches and more out there. But for tag teams, I mean, what Belair or not Belair, Banks and Naomi. I mean, Belair or Bailey and Banks. I mean, when it comes to tag team, I mean, there's not a tag team woman that really jumps out at me.
You had the Bellas that were there. There there's options. There's options, and I get that he's saying that we left the women out because a lot of times we do. So maybe next week that's something we can do for our.
I would just say I would leave it at this. It's a really great point, and we have to respect Thomas Glenn. Thomas Glenn is somebody that I look up to very much, the Chief, and we'll do better next time.
Right there, yeah.
Yeah, we'll do better. We'll fix it.
Oh yeah, Thomas.
Great point.
I mean, he's not wrong. I mean,
no, not at all. I can tell you next week's topic though, just to give everybody a heads up, and I don't want anybody to answer now, but next week's Mount Rushmore will be the Mount Rushmore of Intercontinental Champions.
There you go. Perfect. Okay, perfect.
But nobody answered this week.
Yeah. So nobody drop that in the comment box.
Right.
But you only get 4.
Yeah, 4. And yeah, no, I get it. And Thomas is saying the point I'm trying to make is history sometimes. It says, I love you guys. Well, we love you too. And so
we love you guys too. So
it's like Will said, we'll make it right. We'll make it right. We'll fix it and we'll make it right. So it's fine. But I did like this topic. It was I would say it was difficult because it is hard to come up with the top 4 tag teams when there's so many out there that are just you can put in the top 4. And that's what made it so hard. But speaking of titles, our next topic is about the United States title currently in the current state. And we know how, before Vince McMahon left, it was kind of a mess. It was just a complete freaking mess. And it's like, okay, it wasn't even that really big of a title. But now that you see Triple H there, do you feel like he's actually making it relevant again and actually making it a big time title? So Big B, I'll start with you. Do you feel like he's on the right track of actually making it relevant again?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he took it off of Bobby, probably a little BS way, but put on Seth, so you still got somebody there relevant with it. I think Will's brought it up many times that the U.S. title, Intercontinental title, has always been the stepping stone to get you into the main event picture for most guys. Rollins is a main eventer, so maybe this is a stepping stone on getting them back into the main event picture, title picture, and stuff like that, and see. But those two titles, the IC title and the U.S. title, have always been that stepping stone, as a mid card title. So I like to see it keep going and get more people involved in it.
Well, but that's why I liked that he put the U.S. title on Rollins, is simply because Rollins is a guy that you're going to see as long as he's healthy and not hurt. You're going to see him every Monday night on Raw.
Yep.
So he's going to be able to actually come out and display and be like, hey, you know what? This is the United States Championship. I am the U.S. champ. And so to me, it makes it feel like, yeah, they're making it relevant again by putting it on main eventers like Seth Rollins.
And being that both titles right now are Roman Reigns, I mean, this is almost a 1B title, for Raw right now. So, until they get another world champion, I mean, U.S. title is the top title right now on Raw.
All right, Will, how about you?
So a couple different points. Number one, I think, when we look at the U.S. title and wonder about the relevance of it, it's really hard to picture how relevant it can be because of the guys that have held it in the past. Yeah. Ravishing Rick Rude, Ricky Steamboat, Ric Flair, Lex Luger held it more days, not consecutively, but total than anybody. Lex Luger has held the U.S. title more than anybody else, more days in the history of wrestling. Bret the Hitman Hart held it multiple times when he was in WCW. Diamond Dallas Page, so many people held that belt. And then, back in the day, too, with the U.S. title, when you were the U.S. champion, you were the number one contender for the world championship, basically automatically. So it was a huge, huge deal. Like Big B was saying, it was a stepping stone straight to the main event or straight to the world title picture. Stone Cold Steve Austin, as Stunning Steve, held the U.S. title. It was a big title to hold. And, nowadays, it's hard to live up to that, with the characters of today holding their titles. But I think if you would focus the attention on that belt and you would put your guys that are having their best matches out there with that belt, I think that's how you make it relevant again. I don't think it has to be on a Seth Rollins or Roman Reigns or anybody like that. I think it has to be the working man's title, which is what the Intercontinental title always was. And now the U.S. title over on the other side, WCW and NWA, was always your working man's title. And I think that's what it has to be to really get that title back to relevancy, is it has to be the best match on the card has to be for that U.S. title. Just like it used to be back in the WCW days, just like the Intercontinental title was for WWF. The best matches you were having for the Intercontinental title, Bret and Perfect, Shawn and Perfect, Razor and Diesel, so many different people for that Intercontinental title. And then over in WCW, Lex and Bret, Lex and DDP, Goldberg, U.S. champion, Sid, U.S. champion, Lex Luger, U.S. champion. I mean, so many. Ric Flair, U.S. champion, Ricky Steamboat, all these guys, main event guys that really, really took that U.S. title to major relevancy. And I think you put that title on some guys that can really go. Look at Gunther and or whatever he's going by this week, but Gunther, and look at Sheamus for the Intercontinental title. Those are the working man's titles and the working man's matches, and I think that's what you have to do to make that title as relevant as possible.
Well, I definitely think he's trying.
Yeah, I agree.
He's,
Well, you named off all the great, U.S. titles in WCW. You forgot one. You forgot David Flair.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I didn't mention quite a few
Oh yeah, you missed.
that I probably should have. But I can tell you, one of my favorite U.S. champions of all time was Vader. Vader was U.S. champion.
Yeah, Vader.
Stinger was U.S. champion. There were so many good U.S. champions that I didn't mention, but I was trying to make the point of the working man's championship, and I think that's the key is you got to get the guys that are having the best match on the card. There's so many guys right now that are trying to have the best match of the night, and you can see those matches. You can see those guys working, and that's where you need to put those belts. Not every wrestler needs a belt to get over.
No.
And it always bothered me. It always really, really bothered me when we've talked about it in the past, and even just personally, it always bothered me that Piper was never a world heavyweight champion. But Piper didn't need a belt to get over.
No. And didn't Dusty always say that the U.S. title was a working man's title?
Probably, but I know they said that for sure about the Intercontinental title in WWF.
Yeah, I thought he said that when he was
Probably.
NWA, WCW. Okay.
Probably.
So we have a few comments. Thomas Glenn is saying the 3 big belts used to be the WWF championship, then the Intercontinental Championship, then the United States Championship. My opinion, the IC and US championships, in my opinion, were a disgrace for many years. I'll give you a US title name, Bobo Brazil. And Thomas Burnett saying Vince definitely disgraced the legacy of those championships. He did good for the longest time, but then it just went way downhill. And then Thomas Glenn saying Triple H has a history for the wrestling game today, and I applaud him for that.
You know what I think really hurt the legacy of the U.S. title too? And this may sound stupid. You guys may laugh at this, but I think when you took the U.S. title and you took the second or third design that was used in the late years of WCW, and then you brought it into WWE, and then you changed it into what we would have known as like the flag version of the U.S. title. I think that really hurt the legacy of that belt, changing it to that. And then, of course, you had Cena wearing it at one point, and he had it as a spinner, and I think when you started messing with the designs and stuff like that, I understand belts have to change and designs have to change after so many years, but I think you really hurt the relevancy of that belt when you change it to those designs, because they almost look like something a kid would play with. And then now you've gone back to more of a traditional design. If you look at it with the eagle on it, it's a big, beautiful belt. I think now you could almost use that belt as a world championship in a lot of different organizations. So I think changing the design to something different, putting your best guys in there, that are going to have your good matches, that's the difference. That's the difference maker. And again, I think the relevancy was hurt a lot by the design of the actual belts they were wearing.
Well, don't get me wrong. Didn't Scott Hall throw away the U.S. title? Or was it the IC title?
He was a multiple-time U.S. champion over in WCW.
Yeah, but didn't he throw it in the trash can one time?
Probably.
I thought so. I could be wrong. Maybe Thomas Glenn and Burnett knows.
Even when they had the invasion angle where WCW came into WWF, they still brought that WCW version of the U.S. title over to WWF. So it was WWF or WWE that changed the design to that flag-like design.
Yeah.
It just didn't look good.
Then speaking of the U.S. title, then in designs, and then which one is your favorite U.S. title design?
My favorite is the mid to late 90s WCW U.S. title design. Although I love this new one, and I would almost buy this new one just to have one because I like it so much. But mid 90s to late 90s WCW U.S. title, to me, that'll always be the U.S. title.
Is that the one with the eagle and the flag in between the eagle? Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is definitely a nice design. I do like that.
So Thomas is saying somebody threw it in the ocean at one of the bash at the beach. I could be wrong though.
I think he's right.
He probably is, but I thought for some reason I remember Scott Hall throwing it in a trash can on an episode. I could be wrong.
So Thomas Glenn said Triple H has a history for the wrestling game today, and I applaud him for that. So that's very true. Great comment.
Yeah.
Great comment.
Mm-hmm. And so moving away from this, now we go into, Will, we have your historical moment.
So I don't know if one of you guys has the ability to pull up the card, because I'd like to talk a little bit about the card on this. But
What one?
Survivor Series 87, the first Survivor Series. Can you pull that up real quick?
Yeah.
In the meantime, Survivor Series 87, the inaugural Survivor Series, was brought in as a way to compete. It wasn't really the idea of having another event. It was the idea of competing with WCW's Starrcade.
Yep.
So, Vince McMahon, the rumor has it Vince McMahon went to a lot of the cable companies and said, hey, I'm going to run an event on Thanksgiving night. And the cable company said, well, we already have a wrestling event on Thanksgiving night at Starrcade. And he said, no, you're going to cover my event on Thanksgiving night. And if you don't cover my event and you cover somebody else's event, then I'm not going to give you access to WrestleMania 4. I'm only going to give it access to the companies that cover my event. So a lot of companies went with Vince, and they ended up doing the Survivor Series 87, which was the inaugural Survivor Series. Outstanding card. Big B, can you cover the first match on that?
The first match was 5-on-5. You had Bruce Beefcake, Jake Roberts, Jim Duggan, Randy Savage, Ricky Steamboat, with Miss Elizabeth in their corner. They defeated Dangerous Danny Davis, Harley Race, Hercules, the Honky Tonk Man, Ron Bass, with Bobby Heenan and Jimmy Hart in their corner.
And that was just the first match. Can you believe that? Listen to that name. The list of names of talent right there. Multiple world champions, multiple Hall of Famers. That was the very first match at Survivor Series. So, that kicked off a tremendous event. Obviously, it was planned out very, very well to have all those superstars at the time, to have that very first match, and then, of course, you go on, you have some multiple other matches. You've got a huge women's match.
That was match number 2.
Mm-hmm.
It was up next. Tremendous. You had Moolah's team, and I think it was probably one of the last events she participated in. I could be wrong, but I believe it was one of the last matches she had that was on TV. Tremendous talent inside of that match. Tremendous talent. You had a huge tag team match where they ended up having 5 tag teams on one side, 5 tag teams on the other side. So it was 10 tag team wrestlers on each side. So a 20-man tag team match where when one of the tag team partners was eliminated in the match, both tag team partners were eliminated. What a great concept. And the teams in that match are almost all Hall of Famers, almost all multiple-time world champions, tremendous teams. You're talking Demolition, you're talking Powers of Pain, you're talking Heart Foundation, the Rougeaus, the Killer Bees, you're talking the Bulldogs, you're talking multiple, just incredible teams in that match. And then, of course, you had your big main event of the evening, which is kind of like a closure type match from WrestleMania 3, which happened earlier that year, where you've got Hulk Hogan captaining a team against Andre the Giant captaining a team. So on Hulk Hogan's team, let me see if I remember this correctly. You had Hulk Hogan, you had Mr. Wonderful, you had Bam Bam Bigelow, you had Ken Patera, and then you had, I can't remember the fifth one.
Don
Don
Morocco.
Then you had Andre on the other side. And you had Rick Rude on the other side.
Yep.
and you had King Kong Bundy on the other side.
Yep.
And you had, trying to think of who else it was. There's two more. Trying to think of who the other.
The other two were managed by Slick.
Okay, so one man gang.
Yep.
And I don't know who the fifth one was.
Butch Reed
on the other side. So again, look at the match you had there. I mean, so many world champions, so many number one contenders, so many tremendous amounts of talent right there. These guys would go on, for years and years and years, having great matches. But this was kind of the culmination of the Andre Hogan feud from WrestleMania 3. It's the end of the year. You want something to remember 1987 by. And ultimately, at the end of it, it ends up being Andre the Giant and the bad guys win, which is kind of like, Hogan won at WrestleMania, so Andre's team wins or Andre wins at Survivor Series, kind of to make it even. But what an event. Go back, check it out, watch it from beginning to end. There's not a bad match on the whole card. Every year in November always puts me in a Survivor Series mood. I will tell you a side note, Survivor Series 87 is not my favorite Survivor Series of all time. My favorite Survivor Series of all time is 1993 Survivor Series. However, you can't go wrong with 1987 Survivor Series. It's tremendous event. And in my opinion, Survivor Series 88 and 89 got even better. The next 2 years got even better. So we'll be spending some time this month talking about Survivor Series and talking about some of these matches and some of these events, that kind of led to these feuds that they would have back then, of team versus team. And I'm really hoping now that, Triple H is running things, that we see some old school Survivor Series matches this year. So that's my coverage this week, my historical moment.
So two things really stick out to me about this. The first thing is the tagline that they had for it, which the tagline was the biggest event since WrestleMania 3.
Yep, absolutely.
That's one thing I think they gotta get back to, is having those little taglines. I think that's kind of what sold each pay-per-view.
And
I think they have to use them appropriately though, because this year for WrestleMania, I can't remember what it was, but it was like the biggest WrestleMania main event of all time or something like that.
Yeah.
When it was Brock and Roman.
Yeah.
Which really wasn't the biggest WrestleMania main event of all time. So I think they just need to use them appropriately, and they'll be good to go with those.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that I was going to say that really sticks out too is like you think about like a traditional Survivor Series. That's what really sticks out about this, because this was all like elimination style. If you look at Survivor Series now, you have the men's side of the elimination, and then they have typically the women's side on the elimination, but they have a lot of matches in between.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what really stuck out actually about this, is that this was actually the traditional way of doing it. And I think because of that, I do think that I am going to go back and watch this one again, because there's just so much talent. You look at this and it's like, wow, you could not believe the talent in this match.
I agree.
Well,
let me tell you, sorry, Big B. Let me tell you, the next year following this one, 88, it's even better. It's incredible. It's even better. 88 is even better than 87. So, but we'll get to those. But it's like they started out with a great idea and they just built upon it, and it got better as it went on. So, go ahead, Big B.
No, and just looking at the times of the matches, there was 4 matches. I mean, each one went 20 minutes, and it's just like, really, they got through 5 eliminations or whatever in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, the longest one was the tag team one, which went 37 minutes, but
right.
So I mean, they knew how to space out time. Granted, the entries were probably long too, so
Well, Yeah, I'm sure, but some of the entrances now you see nowadays are
Oh yeah.
long too.
But just to think that each match was 20 plus minutes long, and it's just like, wow, you would have thought maybe they would have went longer on those, and some quick pinfalls, you know.
Well, I think at the first Survivor Series, I believe at the first one, it was only a 2 hour event. I could be wrong.
Uh, you're probably right. I think a lot of the pay per views back then were 2 hours, even WrestleMania.
Yeah, because I just watched WrestleMania 9, and WrestleMania 9 was only like 2 hours and 40 minutes. So it was a very very short pay-per-view. Nothing like we're used to now. I mean, the pay-per-views now definitely go longer. Thomas is saying, fellas, it's great to go back and look at what it was like and look how far it has come today overall in the wrestling game.
Yeah.
I agree, but I really, really miss this one thing that I'll never be able to get around is I really miss the characters. The characters is what's missing today that made wrestling so much fun. When you had a boxer, and you had a prison guard, and you had, a guy with a snake, and
Yeah.
you had a alligator hunter, and you had a model, and you had a repo man, and you had, all these different characters. You had an Undertaker who was half dead, half alive. You just didn't know. That I miss that stuff. You had a sumo wrestler. I miss the characters of wrestling, and that's the biggest difference today.
Well, I think the problem is, talking about character wise today, and I know that we have mentioned it before, but I think the biggest thing today is that too much of like the younger generation of wrestlers, they're so focused on wanting to hit all of their moves. They're not focused on bringing their character to life and really working over the crowd, and really they want to hit, I want to fly off the top ropes and put somebody through the announce table off the top ropes. It's not, I feel like they're not character driven because that's what they're too focused on. I mean, it could be me, but
do you remember what it was like when Razor Ramon was first coming to WWF and they had all the vignettes of him?
Oh yeah,
streets of Miami and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like you literally believe like this is a badass dude coming to WWF. The old vignettes of Ric Flair and the old interviews of Ric Flair coming out on TV and screaming as loud as he could at Hulk Hogan when he was wearing the WCW big gold belt and claiming to be the real world's champion. I mean, you just don't have that, and that's what's missing. Is you really, you need that stuff because it's so exciting. And today wrestlers talk like you and I are talking right now to each other, and they're like, "Hey, come Sunday night, I'm going to beat you up, and it's going to be a good match, and I'm going to give you the big Babalu punch." But back then, but back then, it was just nonstop screaming like I'm going to rip you from limb to limb, and it was just so believable. The characters were so you had a Mountie versus a prison guard. I think that's what's missing.
Well, you kind of touched on it. Before Razor came on, they had interviews with them. They had, little spots. I'm coming, and stuff like that. They don't do that now. It's, pretty much, I mean, granted, I like the pops and stuff when people all of a sudden show up from NXT or they're signed and they show up. I mean, that's kind of nice too. But also back then, it was nice seeing them, give us a little history on their character. Like you said, he's going to be a real tough guy. I mean, he's coming in. I mean, I remember they did that with The Rock when he first came out. He might have had a couple matches in, but I remember him being backstage or doing an interview. He's like, they're showing some old clips of him playing football. He's like, "Oh, yep, this is where I sacked Charlie Ward so hard he decided to go play basketball instead of football," and stuff like that. So yeah, that's definitely missing.
Yeah, we don't get those good vignettes anymore.
No.
So Thomas Glenn is saying absolutely, and great stories that developed out of the characters. He said, I say Bray and Karrion and Karrion have the best character development along with Sammy Oos. That
I agree.
Oh yeah. The Bray Wyatt coming back and Karrion Kross coming back. Yeah, those definitely.
But that's the thing. But that's the thing. Bray Wyatt is a character. He's not just he's not just Bobby Lashley, the former MMA guy. You know what I mean? He's not Brock Lesnar, the former UFC guy. He's a character. Karrion Kross is a character. And I think that's the big key is you're missing that. And I understand you can't have a guy come out with a snake anymore like you used to, and I understand you probably don't have a model Rick Martel hanging out in the back room, but if you could get some of that mixed in, maybe everybody can't be a character, but if you could get some of that mixed in, I think it would really help a lot.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. Not everybody can act out, 24/7 on what they do. And that's one thing that made The Undertaker so popular is because he played The Undertaker 24/7. And, Will, how many autographs do you have of The Undertaker? I mean, you can't get them. I mean,
look at Kane, the character of Kane. Look at Cactus Jack, the character of Cactus Jack. What an exciting time. The character of Sting. It wasn't that Sting was just some dude, that came out with bleach blonde hair. Sting was a character.
Yep.
And then you had Crow Sting, where you believed in it. And like I said too, a lot of it was in the delivery of the messages back and forth with the guys. Coming out there and even like with Seth, and I like Seth's personality, with him coming out and doing the dancing and all that stuff. But I think if Seth came out there and started screaming in the microphone at somebody like Roddy Piper did in 1989, I think you'd have a much different pop and a much different feel from Seth Rollins.
So mentioning Sting like you're talking about now, Sting back then was great. I just don't feel the whole Sting thing now. I don't. I feel like Sting to me has completely changed.
Well, why is Sting still wrestling at 62, 63 years
old? Right.
I understand if he wants to be a manager, and I understand if he wants to be a commentator or a writer or something backstage, but why the hell is the guy still in the ring?
And the thing is he's doing more dangerous stuff now than he did back when he was younger.
Right.
That's what the scary part is.
Why is that guy in the ring?
Yeah.
If I was Tony Khan, I would insist on Sting becoming the Surfer Sting again with the short blonde hair.
Yes.
I would insist on him being the Surfer Sting, or else he'd have to have a job off of TV. Because I think right now all you're doing is killing the legacy of Sting, and at least you could probably get one more good year out of Sting as Surfer Sting, but that guy needs to be done.
Yes.
It's like Ric Flair coming out, and I was there for Ric Flair's last match, and it was very emotional. It was cool. It was awesome to be there. Probably didn't look very good watching it on pay-per-view, but it was cool being there. And Rick keeps saying, "Well, I'm retired," but you never say never and all that stuff. I hope Rick never gets in the ring again because all it does is it kills those legacies. It hurts those legacies, and you don't want to see that for these guys. You want to see them ride off in the sunset like they're supposed to. You don't want to see them go out there and look foolish or pass out or have medical troubles or different things. You don't want to see that stuff.
And that's the thing. Everybody brings up Hogan. Oh, he's working out. He's probably coming back. No,
he's
stay retired, please. And I think Hogan's finally come out and said he's had one too many back surgeries that he can't.
Well, a lot of people don't even know this, but Hogan doesn't even walk without somebody helping him walk now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he did a signing Saturday. I don't know if anybody saw any of the pictures of the video or stuff, but as soon as he got out of his truck, he's leaning against his manager's wife, who helped him get inside the building to do the autograph signing because he can't walk, but unassisted. So, and nothing against him. I mean, he's Hulk Hogan, probably one or two of the greatest of all time. But at the same time, age was caught up to him, and body damage is caught up to him, and it's just what it is. So, and speaking of that too, I was going over this the other night, and this is definitely going to be an upcoming topic, and may even be next week. So, but I won't let two cats out of the same bag in one. But I think we need to have a night of remembrance where we go through talent that has passed away too young and too early. And I think we need to go through and talk about those individual characters and talk about some different ones. And I would say that's something that's upcoming really soon. So definitely stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're at that point now, so we definitely want to thank everybody for watching. It's been another excellent show. It was good to be able to see people being able to comment, because it definitely keeps the show flowing when people are able to comment like that. But really quick, I like this comment that Thomas Glenn is saying. The Shield was a great trio of character development. It was. I love the Shield.
And they weren't the original 3 that were supposed to be there too, from what I've been reading. Yeah. So.
All right. So Thomas Burnett, yes. Thank you.
Yeah,
and then so Big B, anyways, your final thoughts for the evening.
No, definitely like the show. Thank you for everybody chiming in. Definitely, yeah, we got to get with Will and definitely get a remembrance show going or something like that, or some kind of history show, and definitely invite Glenn and Burnett both on. I think they'd definitely be good for a history segment. So thanks for everybody. I love Tuesday nights.
All right. And then, of course, Will, your final thoughts for you.
A couple shout outs real quick. Huge shout out to TRC, all the guys over there, my guys over there, and all the members. Thanks for all the support. Huge shout out to Thoughts Count Anywhere, which of course is where Chief Thomas Glenn and Thomas Burnett are from. Thoughts Count Anywhere, we broadcast it at noon on Saturdays in TRC. So check that out every week. Really, really great stuff. I try not to miss it. I try to be there as much as possible. So great stuff there. And then, of course, shout out to Crispy Bacon behind the scenes. Hope he's doing well. And one of our very own good friends, Randy Cox, the Dragon Viper, he just had a birthday recently. So, Randy, if you're listening, happy birthday, buddy.
All right. We definitely want to thank everybody for watching. It's been another great episode. Look forward to next week, because we're going to have another Mount Rushmore topic for you, Will already stated. It's going to be the United States, the
Intercontinental.
Oh, Intercontinental. The Intercontinental. The Mount Rushmore of the Intercontinental Champions. So look forward to that next week. So with that, I hope everybody has a fantastic night, and we will see you next Tuesday for another episode of Tuesday Night Mania. Have a good